In the fog-choked depths of the Great Smoky Mountains, a ranger's chilling discovery of a child's necklace in an abandoned bear den unravels a decades-old mystery. Who left it there, and what secrets hide in the shadows? This tale, while fictional, is inspired by real stories to educate and entertain. Stick around to the end for shocking twists that'll keep you guessing. Like, subscribe, comment, and share to join the hunt for answers. Don't miss a second. This story will grip you tight and leave you questioning what lurks in the fog. Hit that bell and dive in. The fog clung to the Great Smoky Mountains like a shroud, swallowing the jagged peaks and twisting pines in a suffocating embrace. Ethan Caldwell, a park ranger with 10 years under his belt, trudged through the damp underbrush near Klingman's Dome, his boots sinking into the muddy earth. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of wet moss and decaying leaves, and the temperature hovered around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, chilly for a late October afternoon. His breath puffed out in fleeting clouds, barely visible in the dim light, filtering through the haze. Ethan's routine patrol had taken him to a remote ravine, prompted by a hiker's report of a foul stench wafting from an abandoned bear den. Most likely a dead animal, he figured, but protocol demanded a check. His gut, however, churned with an unease he couldn't shake, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Another damn day in paradise, Ethan muttered, adjusting the weight of his pack. His radio crackled faintly, but the signal was spotty this far out. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park sprawled over 500,000 acres across Tennessee and North Carolina, and this corner felt like the edge of the world. No trails, no tourists, just him and the endless whisper of the trees. He glanced at his watch, 3 in the afternoon. He'd need to hustle to finish before dusk swallowed the forest whole. The ravine dipped sharply, and Ethan half slid down the slope, gripping exposed roots to steady himself. The stench hit him harder now, a rancid mix of rot and something metallic, sharp enough to sting his nose. He clicked on his flashlight, the beam slicing through the fog like a knife. The bear den was tucked beneath an overhang of granite, a black maw barely wide enough for a man to crawl through. Ethan crouched, sweeping the light across the entrance. Scattered bones, probably deer, lay tangled in a mess of pine needles and matted fur. Typical for a black bear's winter hideout, abandoned come spring. But something glinted in the beam, a sharp wink of metal buried in the debris. What the hell? Ethan's voice was low, almost drowned by the distant howl of wind through the pines. He dropped to his knees, gloved hand brushing away dirt and leaves. His fingers closed around something small, cold, and smooth. He held it up to the light, a delicate silver necklace, tarnished but intact, with a tiny butterfly charm dangling from the chain. A single letter was engraved on a heart-shaped pendant, S. Ethan's stomach lurched. He'd seen this necklace before, not in person, but plastered across missing person flyers, news bulletins, and ranger briefings. 4 years ago, Sophie Bennett, a 5-year-old girl with bright blonde curls and a gap-toothed grin, had vanished from a family campsite at Cades Cove, 12 miles from here. The case had haunted the park, sparking the largest search operation in decades. Hundreds of volunteers, K-9 units, even choppers with thermal imaging. They'd found nothing. No trace of the girl, no shred of clothing, no hint of what happened that June night. Until now. Jesus, Ethan whispered, his breath catching in the cold air. He turned the necklace over, the butterfly charm spinning slowly. His mind raced. How did this get here? Bears didn't collect jewelry. A hiker could have dropped it, sure, but this deep in the backcountry? And that letter S. It was too specific, too chillingly familiar. He fumbled for his radio, static hissing as he pressed the button. Base, this is Caldwell at coordinates 353245. I've got something. His voice trembled, betraying the calm he tried to project. Evidence related to the Sophie Bennett case. Repeat, Sophie Bennett. I need forensics and law enforcement up here, pronto. The radio crackled, and Mike Thornton's gruff voice came through, laced with skepticism. Ethan, you sure about this? That case is colder than a January night. You're 12 miles from Cades Cove. Could be some camper's trash. It's her necklace, Mike. Ethan snapped, his grip tightening on the radio. Silver, butterfly charm, letter S engraved. It matches the description from the flyers. I'm not imagining this. A long pause. All right, stay put, I'll call it in. Forensics will take at least 2 hours to get there. Don't touch anything else. Copy that. Ethan clipped the radio to his belt, his eyes locked on the necklace. The forest seemed to close in around him, the fog thickening until the trees were just ghostly silhouettes. He should wait, follow protocol, but something urged him to keep looking. He swept his flashlight across the den again, the beam catching another faint glint. Kneeling, he brushed away more debris, uncovering a small, crumpled piece of paper half buried in the dirt. His heart thudded as he unfolded it. The ink was faded, smeared by moisture, but the words were clear enough. Asterisk, don't find her. Asterisk. Ethan's blood ran cold. The handwriting was uneven, almost childlike, scrawled in what looked like charcoal. He glanced over his shoulder, the hairs on his neck prickling. The forest was silent, no birds, no rustling leaves, just the oppressive weight of the fog. Was someone watching him? He stood, scanning the ravine, but the mist swallowed everything beyond 10 feet. Get a grip, Caldwell, he muttered, shoving the paper into an evidence bag, but the words echoed in his mind. Asterisk, don't find her. Asterisk. Who wrote it? And why? He forced himself to focus, cataloging the scene. The den was shallow, maybe 6 feet deep, with claw marks etched into the walls from years of bear activity. The bones were old, brittle, but none looked human. Still, the necklace and the note were out of place, deliberate. Someone had been here, someone who knew about Sophie. Ethan's mind spun with possibilities. A hiker stumbling across the necklace and leaving a warning? Unlikely. A bear dragging it from some forgotten campsite? Impossible. Bears didn't carry paper notes. This was human. Calculated. His radio buzzed again. Caldwell, forensics is en route. ETA 90 minutes. FBI's been looped in. Agent Harper's taking point. You good out there? Yeah, Mike. I'm fine. A lie. Ethan's pulse hadn't slowed since he found the necklace. He crouched again, examining the ground outside the den. Faint scuff marks in the dirt suggested recent activity, not bear tracks, but boot prints, too muddied to make out clearly. He followed them a few feet until they vanished into the underbrush. Whoever left these was careful, covering their trail. The wind picked up, carrying a faint sound, a soft, fleeting giggle, like a child's. Ethan froze, his flashlight sweeping the fog. Hello? He called, his voice swallowed by the trees. No response. Just the wind, or so he told himself, but the giggle lingered in his ears, sharp and unsettling, like a memory he couldn't place. He shook his head, chalking it up to exhaustion. 12 miles of rough terrain separated this ravine from Cade's Cove. No way a kid could have wandered this far. Not then, not now. By the time the forensics team arrived, the fog had thickened to a near impenetrable wall, reducing visibility to a few yards. Ethan stood by as the white-suited technicians cordoned off the den with yellow tape, their movements precise but hurried in the fading light. Floodlights cast eerie shadows, turning the ravine into a stage for some grim play. Leading the charge was Special Agent Lauren Harper, a wiry woman in her late 30s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense stride. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her FBI windbreaker was already damp from the mist. Caldwell, walk me through it, Lauren said, her voice clipped but not unkind. She knelt beside the den, peering inside as a technician photographed the scene. Ethan handed her the evidence bag with the necklace. Found this about 3 feet inside. Silver, butterfly charm, letter S, matches the description from Sophie Bennett's case file. Then there's this. He held up the bag with the crumpled note. Buried nearby. Says, don't find her. Lauren's eyes narrowed as she studied the note through the plastic. Handwritten. Not exactly a bear's handwriting, is it? She passed it to a technician. Bag it, tag it, rush it to the lab. I want ink and paper analysis by morning. You think it's legit? Ethan asked, watching her closely. He'd heard of Harper, relentless, intuitive, a bloodhound when it came to cold cases. Rumor was she'd lost someone herself years ago, a brother maybe, which drove her to work missing persons cases like a woman possessed. It's too specific to be a coincidence, Lauren replied, standing. 4 years ago, Sophie Bennett, age 5, vanishes from a tent in Cades Cove. No trace, no ransom, no body. Now we've got her necklace in a bear den 12 miles away, with a cryptic note. Someone's playing games. Or covering tracks, Ethan said. Those boot prints fresh, maybe a day old. Someone was here recently. Lauren nodded, her gaze sweeping the ravine. Bears don't collect souvenirs. Whoever left this wanted it found or didn't expect us to look here. She turned to the lead forensic tech, a wiry guy named Patel. What else you got in there? Patel looked up from his work, his face half hidden by a mask. Some fabric scraps, looks like from a kid's backpack. Pink, glittery, Disney princess vibes. Also, a rusty keysmole, like for a padlock. Not the kind of thing you'd find naturally in a den. A key? Lauren's brow furrowed. Run it for prints and DNA. If it's been out here for years, we might still pull something. Ethan shifted, uneasy. You think this is connected to Sophie? Or something else? Lauren didn't answer right away. She stared into the den, her expression unreadable. 4 years ago, we tore this park apart looking for that girl. 12 miles is a long way for a 5-year-old to wander, even if she got lost. And a bear dragging her necklace this far? Doesn't add up. Someone brought it here. Someone like who? Ethan pressed. That's what we're gonna find out. Lauren's voice was steel, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of something else, a doubt, maybe, or fear. She'd seen cases like this go cold forever, and the weight of that history hung heavy. The team worked for another hour, cataloging every scrap of evidence. Ethan stayed on the perimeter, his flashlight cutting through the fog as he scanned for anything the techs might have missed. The giggle he'd heard earlier gnawed at him, a splinter in his mind. He'd been in these woods too long to believe in ghosts, but the Smokies had a way of playing tricks. Old-timers told stories of shadows in the mist, figures that appeared and vanished, voices that echoed without a source. Ethan didn't buy it, but standing alone in the fog, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. Harper? Patel's voice broke the silence, sharp with urgency. He held up another evidence bag, this one containing a tiny plastic toy unicorn, no bigger than a quarter. Found it deeper in the den, wedged in a crack. Looks like it's been here a while. Lauren took the bag, her face tightening. Sophie's parents mentioned a unicorn charm on her necklace. Could be a match. She turned to Ethan. How far is this den from the nearest trail? Half a mile maybe, Ethan said. No one comes out here unless they know where they're going. Too steep, too wild. So either someone stumbled across this den by dumb luck, Lauren said, or they knew exactly where to leave this stuff. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. And that note, "Don't find her." Sounds like a warning. Or a taunt, Lauren countered. She pocketed the evidence bag and turned to the team. Wrap it up, folks. We're losing light. I want everything in Knoxville by tonight. As the team packed up, Ethan lingered by the den, his flashlight lingering on the claw marks in the stone. The forest was silent again, but the weight of the discovery pressed down on him. Sophie Bennett had been gone 4 years, presumed dead by most. Yet here was her necklace, her toy, and a note that felt like a dare. He glanced into the fog, half expecting to see a figure lurking just out of sight. Nothing. Just the endless mist, curling like fingers around the trees. "Caldwell, you coming?" Lauren called, already climbing the ravine. "Yeah, on my way." Ethan took one last look at the den, then turned to follow. But as he climbed, the giggle came again, soft, fleeting, carried on the wind. He stopped, heart pounding, and swept his flashlight across the fog. Nothing but shadows. "Ethan, move it." Lauren's voice was sharp now, impatient. He shook himself, shoving the unease down deep. "Coming," he called, but his eyes lingered on the darkness. Something was out there. He could feel it. Back at the ranger station, Ethan sat across from Lauren in a cramped office, the necklace and note laid out on the table between them. The room smelled of coffee and old wood, the hum of a space heater battling the evening chill. Outside, The rain had started, a steady patter against the windows. "You sure about the giggle?" Lauren asked, her pen tapping against her notepad. "Not sure of anything," Ethan admitted, rubbing his neck. "Could have been the wind, or my head messing with me, but it sounded real." Lauren leaned back, her eyes studying him. "You've been out here a long time, Caldwell. These woods can make you hear things." "Maybe." Ethan didn't argue, but he didn't believe it either. "What's your next move?" "We start with the necklace and the note. Labs rushing analysis, DNA, prints, the works. If we're lucky, we'll pull something off that key. Meantime, I'm pulling every file on the Sophie Bennett case. Witnesses, campers, rangers, anyone who was in the park that summer." Ethan nodded. Cades Cove was packed that weekend. Probably 50 families, plus hikers and staff. "You'll have a lot of ground to cover." "We'll cover it," Lauren said, her voice hard. "That girl's been gone 4 years. If there's even a chance she's still out there, we owe it to her to dig." Ethan thought of the note again. "Don't find her. Asterisk. A warning, a taunt, or something else entirely. What if someone doesn't want us digging?" Lauren's eyes met his, sharp and unyielding. "Then they shouldn't have left a trail." The rain was falling harder now, drumming against the roof. Ethan glanced out the window, where the fog had swallowed the world beyond. Somewhere in that endless haze, a little girl's necklace had turned up after 4 years, and with it, a message that felt like a challenge. He didn't know what they'd find next, but one thing was certain: the Smokies weren't done with their secrets. The rain battered the windows of the FBI field office in Knoxville, Tennessee, a steady drumbeat that matched the pounding in Lauren Harper's head. It was 8 in the evening, 3 hours after Ethan Caldwell's chilling discovery in the bear den near Klingman's Dome. The temperature had plummeted to 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and the damp chill seeped through the walls of the squat brick building 30 miles from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Lauren sat at a cluttered desk, surrounded by stacks of case files from the Sophie Bennett disappearance 4 years ago. Her dark eyes scanned a faded missing person flyer, Sophie's gap, toothed smile, blonde curls, and the silver necklace with a butterfly charm now lying in an evidence bag on the table. The crumpled note, asterisk. "Don't find her," sat beside it, its scrawled words taunting her. Lauren's partner for the case, Detective Samuel Boone of the Tennessee State Police, leaned against the wall, nursing a styrofoam cup of coffee that smelled more like motor oil than caffeine. His broad shoulders and weathered face spoke of years spent chasing leads in rural counties, but his eyes carried a restless edge, like he was itching to get back into the field. "You really think that necklace is Sophie's?" he asked, his drawl thick with skepticism. 4 years is a long time for something that's small to stay put in a bear den. "It's hers," Lauren said, her voice flat but certain. She tapped the evidence bag. "The butterfly charm, the engraved sit matches the parent's description down to the detail. And that note? Nobody leaves something like that by accident." Samuel shrugged, taking a sip of his coffee and grimacing. "Could be a prank. Kids hike out there sometimes. Leave weird stuff to mess with folks. Wouldn't be the first time." Lauren shot him a look, sharp enough to cut through the fog outside. "A prankster hauling a kid's necklace 12 miles into the backcountry, with a note that just happens to reference a missing girl? Come on, Sam. You don't believe that." He raised his hands in mock surrender. "All right, Harper, you win. So what's the play? We got a den full of creepy clues and a whole lot of nothing else." Lauren stood, pacing the small office. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the corkboard where she'd pinned a map of the park. A red pin marked the bear den, a blue one marked Cades Cove, 12 miles northwest. "We start with the evidence. The lab's rushing DNA and prints off the necklace, the note, and that key they found. If we're lucky, we'll get a hit. Meantime, we dig into everyone who was in the park when Sophie vanished: campers, rangers, hikers, staff. Someone saw something." Samuel snorted. "That's half of Tennessee in June. Cades Cove was crawling with tourists. You really gonna interview every family who roasted marshmallows that weekend?" "If I have to," Lauren said, her jaw tight. She stopped pacing, her eyes lingering on the note. The words asterisk, "Don't find her," felt personal, like a challenge aimed directly at her. She'd worked missing persons cases for 15 years, ever since her little brother vanished from a family picnic when she was 18. That wound never healed, and it drove her now, a relentless need to find answers where others saw only dead ends. The door swung open, and Dr. Ellen Patel, the forensic analyst, stepped in, her white coat splattered with rain. She carried a tablet and a grim expression. "Got preliminary results from the den," she said, swiping through images. "The necklace is silver, consistent with the Bennett case description. No prints, but we're still running DNA. The fabric scraps are from a child's backpack, pink, glittery, Disney princess design, popular about 5 years ago. Trace amounts of glitter embedded in the fibers." Lauren leaned forward. "Any blood? Hair? Anything human?" "Not yet," Patel said. "But the key's interesting. It's a standard padlock key, mass-produced, but the rust pattern suggests it was exposed to the elements for years before ending up in that den. We also found animal DNA, not just bear, but canine, possibly a dog." "A dog?" Samuel frowned, setting his coffee down. The Bennetts didn't have a dog. No one reported pets at Cades Cove that weekend. Lauren's mind raced. Could be a stray, or maybe someone else was out there. "What about the note?" Patel hesitated, her fingers pausing on the tablet. "The paper's cheap, like from a sketchbook. The ink's charcoal-based, smudged, but legible. No prints, but the handwriting's uneven, almost like a kid wrote it." "A kid?" Lauren's voice sharpened. "You're saying a child wrote, 'Don't find her.'" "I'm saying it's possible," Patel replied. "We're analyzing the stroke patterns, but it's not an adult's typical script. Could be someone young or someone trying to look young." Lauren exchanged a glance with Samuel. The idea of a child writing that note was chilling, but it didn't fit. Sophie was 5 when she disappeared, barely old enough to write her name, let alone a cryptic warning. "Rush the DNA," Lauren said. "If there's even a trace of Sophie on that necklace, I want to know yesterday." Patel nodded and left, leaving Lauren and Samuel staring at the evidence board. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the note's words were pressing down on them. Lauren's phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen, an unknown number. She answered, her tone clipped. "Harper." A woman's voice, low and urgent, came through. "Agent Harper? This is Clara Vance, freelance journalist with the Knoxville Sentinel. I heard about the find in the Smokies. You got a minute?" Lauren's jaw tightened. The last thing she needed was a reporter sniffing around. "How'd you get this number?" "I've got sources," Clara said, her voice smooth but insistent. "Look, I've been covering missing persons cases in the Smokies for years. That necklace you found? It's tied to Sophie Bennett, right?" "No comment," Lauren said, her fingers gripping the phone. "This is an active investigation." "Don't hang up," Clara said quickly. "I'm not fishing for a scoop. I've got something you need to hear. Last year, I got an anonymous letter about the Smokies. It mentioned kids kept safe in the fog. I thought it was a crank, but after your find today, I'm not so sure." Lauren's pulse quickened. "What else did it say?" "Not much, just that the kids were protected and we shouldn't look for them. It was mailed from Gatlinburg, no return address. I kept it though. You want it, I can bring it to you." Lauren hesitated. Reporters were trouble, but a lead was a lead. "Meet me at the ranger station in Cades Cove tomorrow, 9 in the morning. Bring the letter." "Done," Clara said, and the line went dead. Samuel raised an eyebrow. "You trust her?" "Not even a little," Lauren said, pocketing her phone. "But if she's got something real, we can't ignore it." The next morning, the rain had eased to a drizzle, but the fog still clung to the Smokies, blanketing Cades Cove in a ghostly haze. Lauren and Samuel stood at the edge of the bear den site, now a full-blown crime scene cordoned off with yellow tape. The air was sharp, maybe 40 degrees, and the ground was slick with mud. Ethan Caldwell was there, his ranger uniform damp, his face drawn from a sleepless night. "You get anything from the lab yet?" he asked, his voice low. "Not yet," Lauren said, scanning the ravine. The floodlights were gone, but the den still looked like a wound in the earth, dark and uninviting. Tell me about this place. How often do people come through? Hardly ever, Ethan said. It's half a mile from the nearest trail, and the terrain's brutal steep drops, no paths. You'd have to know exactly where you're going to find this spot. So whoever left that necklace wasn't just passing through, Samuel said, crouching near the den. He pointed to the faint boot prints Ethan had noticed yesterday. These are fresh, maybe 2 days old. Size 10, men's, deep tread, someone heavy, moving fast. Lauren nodded, her mind turning over the possibilities. 12 miles from Cades Cove to here. Rough country, no trails. A 5-year-old couldn't make that trek, not alone. Someone carried that necklacier Sophie out here. Ethan shifted, uneasy. You think she's still out there? Lauren didn't answer. She didn't have to. The hope was faint, a candle flickering against the wind, but it was there. She turned as a battered Jeep pulled up, its tires crunching on the gravel. Clara Vance stepped out, a woman in her early 40s with sharp green eyes and a notebook tucked under her arm. Her raincoat was speckled with mud, and her auburn hair was pulled into a messy bun. Agent Harper? Clara extended a hand, her grip firm. Clara Vance, I brought the letter. Lauren took the envelope, sealed in a plastic bag for protection. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting neat but cryptic. The kids are safe in the fog. Stop looking. Asterisk. No signature, just a Gatlinburg postmark dated 14 months ago. You get anything else like this? Lauren asked, her tone guarded. Clara shook her head. Just that one. I've been digging into missing persons cases in the Smokies for a decade. There's a pattern, kids vanishing, no trace, going back to the 1980s. Most get written off as lost hikers or animal attacks, but I'm not buying it. Samuel crossed his arms. You're saying what? We got a serial kidnapper running around for 40 years? I'm saying the Smokies have secrets, Clara replied, her voice steady. I interviewed families, rangers, even old moonshiners. They talk about shadows in the fog, people who don't belong, moving through the backcountry. Most of it's folklore, but that letter? It's too close to your find. Lauren handed the letter to Samuel, who studied it with a frown. Could be a crackpot, he said, but his tone lacked conviction. Or someone who knows more than they're saying. Exactly, Clara said. Check the 1980s cases. A boy, 6 years old, vanished from Elkmont Campground. No body, no clues. The lead volunteer on that search? A guy named Thomas Carver. Lauren's head snapped up. Carver. Yeah, Clara said, pulling out her notebook. He was a wilderness guide, knew the park better than most rangers, lived near the park's eastern edge, kept to himself. I tried tracking him down last year, but he's a ghost. No phone, no email, just a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Ethan, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. I know Carver. He's still around, lives off a dirt road near Cosby. Older guy, maybe 60, does wildlife photography now, keeps his distance from folks. Lauren's pulse quickened. He was in the park when Sophie disappeared? Probably, Ethan said. He's a fixture out here, always poking around the backcountry, never caused trouble, but he trailed off, his eyes flicking to the den. You think he's involved? I think we need to talk to him, Lauren said, her voice hard. Sam, get his address. We're paying Mr. Carver a visit. The drive to Cosby took 40 minutes, the road winding through dense pine forest cloaked in fog. Lauren sat in the passenger seat of Samuel's unmarked cruiser, her fingers tapping restlessly against the case file. Samuel glanced at her. You're awfully quiet, Harper. What's eating you? This case, she said, her voice low. That note, the necklace, now this letter from Claire. It's too much to be random. Someone's been playing a long game, and I don't like how it feels. Samuel grunted. You think Carver's our guy? I think he's a piece of the puzzle, Lauren said. Whether he's the whole picture, we'll find out. They pulled up to a gravel driveway marked by a faded mailbox reading, Carver. The cabin was tucked deep in the trees, its weathered logs blending into the forest. Smoke curled from the chimney, and a green pickup sat parked nearby, its bed piled with camping gear. The curtains were drawn tight, giving the place a shuttered, secretive air. Lauren knocked on the door, her hand resting near her holster. "Mr. Carver, FBI. We need to talk." No answer. She knocked again, louder. "Thomas Carver, open the door. This is Special Agent Harper." Footsteps shuffled inside, slow and deliberate. The door creaked open a few inches, revealing a man with gray hair and a weathered face, his eyes wary. "What's this about?" Carver's voice was rough, like gravel under boots. Lauren held up her badge. "We're investigating a missing child case. Sophie Bennett, 4 years ago. You were in the park then, right?" Carver's expression didn't change, but his grip on the door tightened. "I heard about that girl. Terrible thing. Don't know nothing about it." "Mind if we come in?" Samuel asked, his tone polite but firm. Carver hesitated, then stepped back, opening the door wider. "Make it quick. I got chores." The cabin's interior was sparse, smelling of wood smoke and old leather. A wood stove glowed in the corner, and the walls were lined with photographs of bears, deer, misty valleys. One caught Lauren's eye, a black bear with 2 cubs, taken near Klingman's dome. "Nice pictures," she said, her tone casual. "You take these yourself?" "Yeah," Carver said, his eyes flicking to the photo. "Been shooting wildlife for years." Lauren nodded, her gaze lingering on a heavy padlock on a basement door. "You spend a lot of time in the backcountry, Mr. Carver. Ever come across anything unusual? Lost items, maybe? Like a kid's necklace?" Carver's face stayed blank, but his shoulders stiffened. "Folks lose stuff all the time. I don't keep track." Samuel stepped closer, his voice low. "What's in the basement, Mr. Carver?" "That's a serious lock for a cabin in the sticks." "It's storage," Carver snapped. "Private property. You got questions, ask 'em. Otherwise, get out." Lauren held his gaze, her instinct screaming that he was hiding something. "We'll be back, Mr. Carver. Count on it." As they left, Lauren noticed a faint scratch on the porch railing, a piece of pink fabric, barely a thread, caught in the wood. She plucked it free, her heart racing. It matched the backpack scraps from the den. "Sam," she whispered, holding it up, "we've got him." Back at the cruiser, Samuel radioed for a surveillance team to watch Carver's cabin. Lauren stared out the window, the fog pressing against the glass like a living thing. Clara's letter, the necklace, the note, now this Bracelet, was all connected, but the picture was still blurry. And somewhere in that haze, a little girl might still be alive. The fog hung thicker than ever over the Great Smoky Mountains, wrapping Thomas Carver's cabin in a suffocating veil. The air was damp and biting, hovering around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, as Lauren Harper and Samuel Boone stood on the porch, their breath clouding in the dim glow of a single porch light. It was 9 at night, less than 24 hours since Ethan Caldwell's discovery of Sophie Bennett's necklace in the bear den 12 miles away. The piece of pink fabric Lauren had plucked from the porch railing matching, the scraps from the den burned a hole in her pocket, a silent accusation against the man inside. The cabin's drawn curtains and heavy padlock on the basement door screamed secrets, and Lauren's gut told her Carver was neck-deep in them. "Something's off about this guy," Samuel muttered, his eyes scanning the dark tree line. His hand rested on his holster, a reflex born from years of chasing leads in Tennessee's backwoods. "That lock on the basement? Ain't nobody needs 3 deadbolts to store old camping gear." Lauren nodded, her jaw tight. "He's hiding something. That fabric ties him to the den, and I'd bet my badge he knows more about Sophie than he's letting on." She glanced at the green pickup parked nearby, its bed cluttered with tarps and rope. "We need to get inside that basement, Sam, tonight." Samuel raised an eyebrow, his drawl heavy with caution. "You're talking about a warrant. Judge Harmon's not going to sign off without more than a piece of fabric and a bad vibe." "Then we find probable cause," Lauren said, her voice low and sharp. "Carver's twitchy. Did you see how he flinched when I mentioned the necklace? He's scared, and scared people make mistakes." Before Samuel could respond, a faint noise cut through the fog, a low, guttural hum, like an engine idling in the distance. Lauren's head snapped toward the sound, her hand instinctively going to her sidearm. You hear that? Samuel squinted into the mist. Yeah, could be a neighbor, but out here? Doubt it. He pulled his flashlight, sweeping the beam across the gravel driveway. The light caught something glinting near the pickup, a small, metallic object half buried in the mud. He crouched, digging it out with gloved fingers. Well, damn, another key. Lauren's pulse quickened as she took the key, small and rusted, identical to the one found in the bear den. 2 keys, same type, both tied to Carver. This isn't a coincidence. She pocketed it, her mind racing. We need to talk to him again, now. She pounded on the door, her knuckles stinging in the cold. Carver, FBI, open up. No answer. She knocked again, harder, the wood rattling under her fist. Thomas Carver, we know you're in there. Open the door, or we're coming in. Footsteps shuffled inside, slow and deliberate. The door creaked open, revealing Carver's weathered face, his gray eyes narrowed to slits. What now? He growled, his voice rough as sandpaper. I told you, I got nothing to say. Lauren held up the evidence bag with the new key. Found this outside your truck. Funny, it looks just like the one we pulled from that bear den. Care to explain? Carver's gaze flicked to the key, and for a split second, something like fear flashed across his face. He covered it quickly, his expression hardening. People lose keys all the time, ain't mine. Then you won't mind us taking a look around, Samuel said, stepping closer. Starting with that basement. Carver's hand tightened on the doorframe. You got a warrant? We've got probable cause. Lauren shot back, her voice like steel. 2 keys, fabric matching evidence from a crime scene, and your name popping up in a missing kid's case. You want to play hardball? We can have a judge on the phone in 10 minutes. Carver stared at her, his jaw working silently. Finally, he stepped back, jerking the door open. Fine, look around, but you're wasting your time. The cabin's interior was just as sparse as before, the air thick with the smell of wood smoke and damp wool. The wood stove glowed faintly, casting flickering shadows across the walls lined with Carver's wildlife photos. Lauren's eyes locked on the picture of the black bear with 2 cubs, tagged with a small label, F214, Klingman's Dome, June 4 years ago. The same bear whose den held Sophie's necklace. Her stomach twisted. Nice shot, she said, keeping her tone neutral. You take this around the time Sophie Bennett went missing? Carver shrugged, his posture stiff. I take a lot of pictures, don't keep track of dates. Samuel wandered toward the basement door, his flashlight playing over the 3 deadbolts and padlock hasp. This is some serious security for a storage room, he said, his voice laced with suspicion. What's down there, Carver? Gold bars? Family heirlooms? Tools? Supplies? Carver snapped. I live alone out here. Can't be too careful. Lauren exchanged a glance with Samuel. She didn't buy it, and neither did he. Open it, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Carver hesitated, his eyes darting between them. For a moment, she thought he'd bolt, but he fished a key from his pocket and unlocked the bolts, each one clicking with a heavy, deliberate thud. The padlock came last, its hasp gleaming new against the weathered wood. He swung the door open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Go on then, he said, his voice tight. Waste your time. Lauren led the way, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air grew colder as they descended, the smell of earth and mildew replacing the wood smoke above. The basement was larger than she'd expected, stretching beyond the cabin's footprint. Shelves lined the walls, packed with camping gear, canned food, and photography equipment, cameras, lenses, a high-end computer setup. But it was the far corner that stopped her cold, a heavy wooden door, secured with another padlock, this one shinier than the last. What's behind that? Lauren asked, her voice echoing in the damp space. Carver's face was unreadable. Storage. Old junk. Samuel stepped closer, his flashlight illuminating the door's surface. Another padlock? Man, you really don't want folks poking around down here. Lauren's instincts screamed. The keys, the fabric, The bare photo, everything pointed to this cabin, this man. She turned to Carver, her eyes boring into his. "Open it, now." "I don't have the key," Carver said, his voice flat, "lost it years ago." "Convenient," Samuel muttered, pulling his radio. "I'm calling for backup. We're tearing this place apart." Carver's shoulders sagged, but his eyes stayed hard. "Do what you gotta do." As Samuel radioed for a tactical team, Lauren's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Clara Vance. She stepped away, keeping one eye on Carver. "Harper," she answered, her voice low. "Agent Harper, it's Clara," the journalist said, her tone urgent. "I've been digging into Carver's past. He was a suspect in a case from the 1980s, a 6-year-old boy who vanished from Elkmont. No charges, but the Rangers thought he was too invested, always showing up at the search sites alone. And get this, she changed his name when he moved to Cosby 12 years ago. Used to be Thomas Carson." Lauren's grip tightened on the phone. "You're sure?" "Positive. I've got the records. I'm emailing them to you now." "Thanks, Clara." "Stay close." Lauren hung up, her mind racing. A name change, a prior case, and now physical evidence tying Carver to Sophie's disappearance. She turned to Samuel, who was still on the radio. "Sam, we've got more on Carver. He's got history, another missing kid, 1980s, Elkmont." He changed his name. Samuel's eyes widened. "Son of all right, tactical's 30 minutes out. We need to keep him here." Lauren nodded, turning back to Carver, who stood by the stairs, his face a mask of defiance. "Thomas Carson," she said, watching for a reaction. "That's your real name, isn't it?" Carver's eyes flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. "Don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice was strained, like a wire stretched to breaking. "Don't play dumb," Lauren snapped. "You were at Elkmont when that boy disappeared. Now Sophie's necklace turns up in a den near your favorite photo spot, with fabric from your porch. Start talking, or we'll do this the hard way." Carver's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, his gaze drifting to the locked door in the corner. Lauren followed his eyes, her heart pounding. Whatever was behind that door held answers, she could feel it. "Sam, get a crowbar from the truck," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. Samuel hesitated. "You sure?" "We should wait for the team." "We're not waiting," Lauren said, her tone final. "He's stalling, and I'm not giving him time to cover his tracks." Samuel nodded and headed upstairs, leaving Lauren alone with Carver. The basement felt smaller now, the air thick with tension. She stepped closer to the locked door, her flashlight sweeping over its surface. Faint scratches marked the wood, like something or someone had clawed at it. "What's in there, Carver?" she asked, her voice low. "What are you hiding?" "You're barking up the wrong tree," he said, but his voice cracked, betraying him. "You won't find nothing." "We'll see about that." Lauren's flashlight caught a faint glint on the floor, a small, silver object tucked in a crack between the concrete and the wall. She knelt, prying it free with her gloved fingers. It was another charm, a tiny unicorn, identical to the one found in the den. Her blood ran cold. "This is Sophie's," she said, holding it up. "You want to tell me how it got here?" Carver's face paled, his eyes darting to the door. "I don't know nothing about that." "Bullshit," Lauren snapped, standing. "You've got her stuff in your basement, in a bear den 12 miles away, and you were sniffing around another kid's case years ago. You're done, Carver." Samuel returned, crowbar in hand, his face grim. "Backup's 20 minutes out. You want to do this now?" Lauren nodded, her eyes never leaving Carver. "Pry it open." Samuel wedged the crowbar into the door's frame, the wood groaning under the pressure. Carver took a step forward, his hands twitching. "You got no right," he said, his voice rising. "That's private property." "Step back," Lauren ordered, her hand on her gun. "Last warning." With a final heave, Samuel forced the door open, the padlock clattering to the floor. The room beyond was small, barely 10 feet square, but it stopped Lauren in her tracks. The walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them, pinned in neat rows. They showed a blonde girl at different ages, from 5 to what looked like 9, her face unmistakable. Sophie Bennett. The most recent photo, dated a week ago, showed her sitting on a cot, her eyes distant but alive. "Oh my God," Samuel breathed, his voice barely a whisper. Lauren's heart pounded as she scanned the room. A small cot sat in one corner, next to a table with a single lamp and a stack of children's books. A stuffed dog lay on the pillow, its fur worn from years of handling. "She's alive," Lauren said, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and rage. "You've had her all this time." Carver backed toward the stairs, his face ashen. "You don't understand," he said, his voice breaking. "I saved her. The world out there, it's no place for a kid like her." Lauren spun on him, her gun drawn. "Where is she, Carver? Where's Sophie?" He shook his head, his eyes wild. "You'll never find her. She's safe now." Samuel lunged, grabbing Carver's arm and pinning him against the wall. "Start talking, you sick bastard, or I swear." Before he could finish, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Lauren's head snapped toward the stairs. What the hell was that? Samuel shoved Carver toward the stairs, cuffing his hands behind his back. "Stay here," he told Lauren, dragging Carver up. "I'll check it out." Lauren nodded, her flashlight sweeping the room again. The photos told a chilling story. Sophie growing up in captivity, her life documented like a twisted scrapbook. But the room was empty, no sign of the girl herself. Lauren's eyes fell on a small notebook on the table, its pages filled with Carver's cramped handwriting. She flipped it open, her stomach twisting as she read, "Asterisk. She's better off with me. The fog keeps her safe. They'll never find her. Asterisk." Footsteps pounded above, and Samuel's voice crackled through her radio. "Harper, get up here. He's got a tunnel." Lauren bolted up the stairs, her heart in her throat. The main room was in chaos. Glass shards littered the floor from a shattered window, and Samuel stood by a hidden panel in the wall, revealed when a bookshelf was pulled aside. A narrow tunnel stretched into darkness, its walls shored up with timber. "He was gonna run," Samuel said, his voice tight. "Must have heard us coming." Lauren peered into the tunnel, her flashlight barely piercing the gloom. "Where does it lead?" "No idea," Samuel said, cuffing Carver tighter. "But I'm betting he's got a hideout." "Where's Sophie, Carver? Where'd you take her?" Carver's lips curled into a faint, defiant smile. "You're too late," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's gone." Lauren's blood ran cold. She grabbed Carver's collar, her face inches from his. "If you've hurt her, I'll bury you myself." "Where is she?" Carver met her gaze, his eyes gleaming with something unreadable pride, maybe, or madness. "The fog protects her," he said. "You'll see." Before Lauren could respond, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen. Clara Vance. "What now?" she answered, her voice sharp. "Harper, it's Clara," the journalist said, her voice breathless. "I'm at the ranger station. One of the old-timers just told me about a network of caves near Little River, 3 miles from Carver's place. Said he's seen lights out there at night, like someone's moving around. You need to check it out." Lauren's mind raced. Caves. A perfect hiding spot, deep in the Smokies' labyrinthine backcountry. "Thanks, Clara. We're moving." She hung up, turning to Samuel. "We've got a lead. Caves near Little River. He's got her stash there." Samuel nodded, shoving Carver toward the door. "Let's go. He's coming with us." As they stepped outside, the fog seemed to pulse, alive with secrets. Lauren's flashlight caught a faint movement in the trees, a shadow, fleeting and formless, gone before she could focus. Her heart pounded, but she pushed the unease aside. Sophie was out there, and every second counted. The Smokies weren't done with their secrets, but neither was she. The fireplace in Thomas Reed's Pinewood Lane home crackled, casting jagged shadows across the living room. Hannah stood rigid, her sisters Sophia and Charlotte beside her, their faces a mix of confusion and dread. Laura Bennett faced Thomas, her eyes blazing with 18 years of pent-up fury. The rusted key from the attic, burned in Hannah's pocket, a silent accusation. She demanded this meeting, her heart pounding with the weight of Laura's claims and the letter from Daniel, her real father. The air felt thick, ready to ignite. "Hannah, what's going on?" Sophia asked, her voice sharp. "Why's this lady here?" Hannah's gaze locked on Thomas. "Dad, tell us the truth. Is Laura our mother?" Thomas slumped into an armchair, his face ashen. I did what I had to. You were in danger." "Danger from what?" Sophia snapped, stepping forward. "You told us Mom died of pneumonia." Laura's voice cut through, raw and fierce. "You stole my daughters, Thomas. You erased me from their lives." Charlotte clutched her heart-shaped pendant, her eyes wide. "Is this true, Dad?" Thomas's hands trembled. "Your father, Daniel, was tangled with bad people, money launderers, criminals. He owed them big. When he took you, I hid you here in Haven, changed your names, made new papers. I saved you." "Saved us?" Hannah shouted, her voice cracking. "You lied for 18 years. Laura pulled a worn journal from her purse, her hand shaking. "This is mine. I wrote about your first words, your first steps. Hannah, you said mama at 10 months. Sophia, you loved chasing fireflies. Charlotte, you'd cry without your stuffed bunny." The sisters stared, stunned, as Laura's words matched hazy memories. Charlotte's voice broke. "Wait, I heard you, Dad, on the phone last month, telling someone to keep the girls quiet. Who was that?" Thomas's face drained of color. "You weren't supposed to hear that." "Who, Thomas?" Laura demanded, her voice ablaze. "Who's still after my girls?" He looked away, jaw tight. "They never stopped watching. I thought I could protect you." Hannah pulled the key from her pocket. "This led us to the old house on Birch Road, the one that burned. We found a hidden room, Thomas. Files, names, bank records. You weren't just hiding us, you were part of it." The room spun. Sophia grabbed Charlotte's arm, her eyes wild. Part of what? A crime ring? Before Thomas could answer, Laura's phone buzzed a photo of the burned house, sent from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold. "They're here," she whispered. A sharp crack echoed outside, a gunshot splitting the night. The sisters screamed, diving behind the couch. Thomas lunged for the door, but Laura grabbed Hannah's hand. "We need to go now." They scrambled into the fog, the pines swallowing their footsteps. Headlights pierced the darkness, a black SUV roaring closer. The files, the key, Daniel's death, it all pointed to a truth far deadlier than lies. Who was hunting them, and what had Thomas unleashed? The rain lashed down in sheets, turning the forest floor into a slick quagmire, as Lauren Harper and Samuel Boone pushed through the dense undergrowth near Little River, 3 miles from Thomas Carver's cabin. The fog was relentless, a suffocating shroud that cut visibility to 10 feet, and the temperature had dropped to a bone-chilling 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It was past midnight, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Lauren's flashlight beam danced across the trees, catching glints of wet pine needles and the occasional flicker of movement, probably just the wind, but her nerves were raw, every rustle a potential threat. Carver sat cuffed in the back of their cruiser, parked a quarter-mile back, under the watch of 2 state troopers. His cryptic words, "The fog protects her," echoed in Lauren's mind, fueling her urgency. Sophie Bennett was out here, somewhere, and they were running out of time. Samuel trudged beside her, his boots sinking into the mud, his face set in a grim line. "This better not be a wild goose chase," he muttered, wiping rain from his eyes. "Clara's tip about these caves sounds like a long shot. 3 miles in this mess? Carver'd need to be a damn mountain goat to get a kid out here." "It's no long shot," Lauren said, her voice sharp over the rain's roar. "That tunnel in his cabin wasn't for show. He's got a hideout, and Clara's source saw lights near Little River. It fits." She clutched the evidence bag with the pink fabric from Carver's porch, its glittery threads a haunting link to the scraps in the bear den. The notebook from his basement, with its rambling entries about keeping Sophie safe, had only deepened her conviction. Carver wasn't just a loner, was calculated, obsessive, and dangerous. A third figure emerged from the fog. Margaret Holt, a grizzled park ranger with 30 years in the Smokies. Maggie, as she insisted on being called, had joined them at the last minute, her weathered face etched with guilt. "I should have said something about Carver years ago," she said, her voice rough as she kept pace. "He was always out here, poking around places no one else went. After that boy vanished in Elkmont back in the 1980s, I had a bad feeling, but no proof, just vibes." "Vibes don't hold up in court," Samuel said, his flashlight sweeping the ground for tracks. "But that fabric, those keys, in his creepy photo collection, that's a start." Lauren nodded, her eyes scanning the riverbank ahead. Little River rushed by, its waters swollen and turbulent, drowning out all but the loudest sounds. Clara's tip about lights in the caves had come from an old moonshiner who'd seen strange activity near this stretch of water. Flickering glows at night, too steady to be campfires. Lauren's gut told her it was Carver's doing, a hidden sanctuary for whatever twisted purpose drove him. "Maggie, you said Carver knew these woods better than anyone," she called over the rain. "Any caves around here he might use?" Maggie nodded, her poncho slick with water. "There's a network of limestone caves about a half-mile upriver. Old moonshiners used them to hide stills back in the day. Narrow entrances, easy to miss unless you know where to look. Carver'd been out here enough to find them. Then that's where we're headed," Lauren said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. She checked her radio, the signal weak but holding. "Ethan, you copy? We're approaching the caves. Keep the troopers on Carver. He moves, you shut him down." Ethan Caldwell's voice crackled through, distorted by static. "Copy, Harper. He's not going anywhere. Be careful out there, these woods don't play nice at night." Lauren clipped the radio to her belt, her flashlight catching a faint break in the underbrush path, barely visible, leading toward the river. "There," she said, pointing. "That's no game trail. Someone's been through here." Samuel crouched, examining the ground. Boot prints, fresh, and smaller ones, kid-sized. His voice tightened, the words heavy with implication. "They're recent, maybe a day old. Rain hasn't washed him out yet." Lauren's heart lurched. Sophie. She had to be close. "Let's move," she said, leading the way down the path. The river's roar grew louder, its spray mixing with the rain to soak her jacket. The trail ended at a rocky outcropping, where a tangle of vines and roots concealed a narrow cave mouth, barely 3 feet high. Lauren knelt, her flashlight illuminating a damp, jagged tunnel. "This is it," she said, her voice low. "Maggie, you know these caves. What's the layout?" Maggie squinted into the darkness. "They're a maze. Tunnels branch off, some dead end, some go deep. If Carver's got a hideout, it'll be tucked away where no one stumble across it. Watch your step, floors are uneven, and some spots flood in rain like this." Lauren nodded, her hand resting on her gun. "Stay close. If Sophie's in there, we don't spook her. And if Carver's got company, we don't take chances." She ducked into the cave, the air turning cold and heavy, thick with the smell of wet stone and something sour, like decay. Samuel and Maggie followed, their flashlights casting long shadows that danced across the walls. The tunnel was tight, forcing them to crouch as they moved deeper. Water dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the floor, and the walls were slick with moss. Lauren's beam caught faint scratches in the stone claw marks, maybe, or something more deliberate. "Look at this," she said, tracing a pattern with her light. The scratches formed crude symbols, circles, lines, what looked like a child's attempt at a star. "Carver's work?" Maggie shook her head, her face pale in the flashlight's glow. "Don't think so. These look old, like from way back. Locals talk about weird markings in these cave-sold Cherokee stuff, or maybe moonshiners. Gives me the creeps." Samuel snorted, but his voice was tense. "Great. We're chasing a kidnapper in a haunted cave. Just what I needed." "Focus," Lauren snapped, though the symbols sent a shiver down her spine. She pushed forward, the tunnel branching into 2 paths. The left was narrower, barely wide enough for a person. The right sloped downward, water trickling along the floor. "Which way?" she asked Maggie. Right, Maggie said, pointing. It's deeper, more likely to hide a setup, left probably dead ends. They took the right path, the air growing colder, the sound of the river fading to a distant murmur. Lauren's flashlight caught something on the ground, a shred of fabric, pink and glittery, identical to the scraps from the den in Carver's porch. We're on the right track, she said, bagging it. Sophie's been through here. A faint sound echoed ahead, a soft, muffled sob, barely audible over the drip of water. Lauren froze, her heart pounding. You hear that? She whispered. Samuel nodded, his hand on his gun. Yeah. Kid, maybe. Or a trap. Madge's eyes widened. That's no animal. We gotta move. Lauren led the way, her flashlight sweeping the tunnel. The sobbing grew louder, a small, broken sound that tore at her chest. Sophie? She called softly, her voice echoing off the walls. Sophie Bennett, it's okay. We're here to help you. The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced by a rustle, like someone scrambling away. Lauren quickened her pace, the tunnel opening into a wider chamber. Her light revealed a makeshift camp, a sleeping bag on a rocky ledge, a lantern flickering weakly, and a small pile of children's books, their pages curled from dampness. In the center of the chamber, a tattered backpack lay discarded, its Disney princess design unmistakable. It wasn't Sophie. She hadn't been carrying one when she vanished, but the pink glitter matched the other scraps. Another kid, Lauren said, her voice barely a whisper. He's done this before. Samuel knelt by the backpack, his face grim. No blood, no damage. Whoever owned this, they were here recently. He stood, his flashlight catching something else, a small wooden box tucked against the wall. He pried it open, revealing a collection of trinkets, a toy car, a hair clip, a keychain with a faded initial. What the hell is this? Some kind of trophy stash? Lauren's stomach twisted. Not trophies, keepsakes. He's collecting from his victims. She scanned the chamber, her light landing on a section of wall covered in more carvings, names, etched deep into the stone. Tommy, 1985. Ellie, 1992. Sophie, 2021. Asterisk. Her breath caught. He's been at this for decades. Maggie's voice was hoarse. I knew he was off. But this is a monster. Before Lauren could respond, a scream tore through the cave, high and panicked, coming from deeper in the tunnel. Sophie, Lauren shouted, bolting toward the sound. The tunnel twisted sharply, the floor slick with water. She slipped, catching herself against the wall, her flashlight clattering to the ground. Samuel grabbed her arm, pulling her up. Careful, Harper. We don't know what's down there. I don't care, she said, snatching her light. That was a kid. She pushed forward, the scream echoing again, closer now. The tunnel opened into another chamber, larger and darker, the air thick with the stench of mold. Her flashlight swept across the space, landing on a small figure huddled in the corner, a girl, maybe 9, with long blonde hair and wide, terrified eyes. She clutched a stuffed dog, her clothes oversized and filthy. Sophie? Lauren said, her voice soft but urgent. She took a step forward, holstering her gun. Sophie Bennett? I'm Lauren, with the FBI. Your mom and dad sent me to find you. The girl flinched, pressing herself against the wall. Don't come closer, she whispered, her voice trembling. He said bad people would come. He said to hide. Lauren's heart broke, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not bad, Sophie, I promise. Your parents, Anna and Michael, they've been looking for you every day. They miss you so much. Sophie's eyes flickered with doubt, her fingers tightening on the stuffed dog. Daddy James said they didn't want me. He said he saved me. Daddy James? Samuel muttered, his voice low. That's Carver. Son of a bitch brainwashed her. Lauren shot him a warning look, then knelt, keeping her distance. Sophie, Daddy James lied. Your real mom and dad never stop looking. They love you. Can you come with me? I'll take you to them. Sophie hesitated, her eyes darting to the tunnel behind them. He'll be mad, she whispered. He always comes back. Not this time, Lauren said, her voice firm. He's with the police. He can't hurt you anymore. Before Sophie could respond, a low rumble shook the cave, followed by a deafening crash. Dust rained from the ceiling, and Lauren spun, her flashlight catching a pile of rocks blocking the tunnel they'd come through. What the hell was that? Samuel shouted, coughing as the air filled with grit. Maggie's face paled. Cave in. This place is unstable, too much rain. We're trapped. Lauren's pulse raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. There's another way out. There has to be. She turned back to Sophie, who was trembling, her eyes wide with fear. Sophie, listen to me. Do you know another way out of here? Did Daddy James show you? Sophie nodded slowly, pointing to a narrow crevice in the far wall. He said to go that way if bad people came. It goes to the river. Good girl, Lauren said, helping Sophie to her feet. The girl was light, her frame fragile from years in captivity. Stay close. We're getting you out. Samuel led the way, squeezing through the crevice with his flashlight. The tunnel was tight, the walls pressing in, water seeping through cracks. Maggie followed, her breathing ragged. Carver planned this, she said. He knew these caves like his own backyard, probably set that cave in to slow us down. Then he's still out there, Lauren said, her grip tightening on Sophie's hand. Those troopers better keep him locked down. The tunnel sloped upward, the air growing fresher as they neared the surface. Samuel's flashlight caught a glimmer of moonlight ahead, and they emerged into a small clearing by the river, the water roaring past in a frothy torrent. Lauren scanned the area, her light sweeping the trees. We're clear, she said, but her relief was short-lived. Her radio crackled, Ethan's voice frantic. Harper, we've got a problem. Carver's gun knocked out a trooper and took off in his truck. We're in pursuit, but he's headed your way. Lauren's blood ran cold. Copy that. We've got Sophie. Get back up to Little River, now. She turned to Samuel and Maggie. He's coming for her. We need to move. Sophie whimpered, clutching her stuffed dog. He's gonna be so mad, she whispered. Lauren knelt, meeting her eyes. He's not getting you, Sophie. I promise. But as she spoke, a shadow moved in the Foga figure, tall and silent, watching from the trees. Her hand went to her gun, her heart pounding. Carver was out there, and the Smokies were still hiding his secrets. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the fog clung to the Great Smoky Mountains like a living thing, wrapping the little river clearing in a ghostly haze. Lauren Harper stood with Sophie Bennett's small hand in hers, the 9-year-old, trembling under an oversized jacket. The air was sharp, barely 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the roar of the river drowned out all but the loudest sounds. Samuel Boone scanned the tree line, his gun drawn, while Margaret Holt, the veteran ranger, kept close to Sophie, her flashlight sweeping the shadows. Thomas Carver had escaped custody, knocking out a trooper and vanishing into the night in his green pickup. Lauren's radio crackled with Ethan Caldwell's voice, reporting the pursuit 3 miles away, but the signal was weak, swallowed by the storm and the dense forest. The shadow Lauren had glimpsed in the fog lingered in her mind, a tall, silent figure that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Carver was out there, and he was coming for Sophie. Stay sharp, Lauren said, her voice low but steady. He knows these woods better than we do. If he's headed this way, he's got a plan. She tightened her grip on Sophie's hand, the girl's stuffed dog clutched tightly against her chest. Sophie's eyes were wide, darting toward the fog, her fear palpable. You're safe with us, Sophie, Lauren added, forcing calm into her tone. We're getting you home. Samuel's flashlight caught a glint in the underbrush tire track, fresh and deep, cutting through the mud. He's been here, he said, his drawl tight with tension. Track's too big for a sedan. That's his truck. Maggie crouched, examining the ground. Leads toward the riverbank. He might have ditched the truck and gone on foot. These caves have multiple exits, she could pop up anywhere. Lauren's heart pounded, but she kept her focus on Sophie. Did Daddy James ever talk about other places he took you? Somewhere near the river? She asked, kneeling to the girl's level. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper, her eyes fixed on the fog. He said there was a safe place, deeper in the caves, where the shadows keep us hidden. She hesitated, her fingers twisting the stuffed dog's ear. He said the bad people couldn't find me there. Bad people like us? Samuel asked, his tone gentle but probing. Sophie nodded, her lip trembling. He said you'd take me away and hurt me. But you don't seem bad. Lauren's chest ached. 4 years of brainwashing had left deep scars, turning Carver into a twisted savior in Sophie's mind. We're not here to hurt you, she said. We're taking you to your real mom and dad. They've been waiting for you, Sophie. A branch snapped in the distance, sharp and deliberate. Lauren spun, her gun raised, her flashlight cutting through the fog. Show yourself, she shouted, her voice echoing off the rocks. No response, just the steady drip of rain and the river's roar. She glanced at Samuel, who nodded, his own gun ready. Maggie, stay with Sophie, Lauren said, her voice low. Sam, let's check the perimeter. He's close. I can feel it. They moved toward the tree line, their boots sinking into the mud. The fog seemed to pulse, alive with secrets, and every shadow felt like a threat. Lauren's flashlight caught another tire track, veering toward a cluster of boulders near the river. He parked here, she said, pointing. Then he went on foot. He's circling us. Samuel's eyes narrowed, trying to draw us away from the kid. We need backup, Harper, now. Lauren keyed her radio. Ethan, status on Carver's pursuit. We've got fresh tracks near Little River. He's in the area. Static crackled. Then Ethan's voice came through, strained. Lost him a mile out. Truck's abandoned on a fire road. He's on foot, headed your way. Backup's 15 minutes out. Choppers can't fly in this fog. Copy, Lauren said, her jaw tight. 15 minutes was an eternity in these woods. She turned to Samuel. We need to get Sophie to the cruiser. It's our best shot at keeping her safe. They doubled back to the clearing, where Maggie stood guard over Sophie, her flashlight trained on the trees. Anything? Maggie asked, her voice tense. Tire tracks, Lauren said. He's close. We're moving to the cruiser, half a mile back. Stay tight. Sophie clung to Lauren's hand, her small frame shivering in the damp air. He's gonna find me, she whispered, her voice breaking. He always does. Not tonight, Lauren said, her tone fierce. Not ever again. They moved quickly, following the muddy path back toward the cruiser. The fog thickened, reducing visibility to a few feet, and the river's roar masked any sounds of pursuit. Lauren's senses were on edge, every rustle a potential threat. Halfway to the cruiser, Samuel stopped, his flashlight landing on a fresh set of boot prints crossing their path. Size 10, deep tread, he said, his voice low. Same as the ones at the den. Lauren's heart sank. He's ahead of us. She keyed her radio again. Ethan, we've got fresh prints near the cruiser. Lock it down and get the troopers ready. On it, Ethan replied. Troopers are alert, but the fog's screwing with visibility. Be careful, Harper. They pressed on, the cruiser's faint outline emerging through the mist. The two troopers stood by the vehicle, their flashlights sweeping the darkness. Lauren's relief was short-lived. A sharp crack echoed from the trees, followed by a muffled grunt. One trooper dropped, clutching his leg, as a figure darted into the fog. Carver, Lauren shouted, shoving Sophie behind her. Sam, cover the kid. Samuel pulled Sophie and Maggie toward the cruiser, his gun raised. Lauren sprinted toward the fallen trooper, her flashlight catching a glimpse of Carver's silhouette vanishing into the trees. The second trooper fired a warning shot, the sound swallowed by the fog. He's got a rifle, the trooper yelled, dragging his partner to cover. Lauren crouched beside the injured trooper, checking his wound. A clean shot through the calf, non-lethal but painful. Hold on, she said, tearing a strip from her jacket to tie off the bleeding. Backup's coming, stay down. The trooper nodded, grimacing. He came out of nowhere, knew exactly where to hit. Lauren's mind raced. Carver wasn't just desperate, he was tactical, using the fog and terrain to his advantage. She rejoined Samuel and Sophie, who were huddled by the cruiser. Maggie's face was pale, her flashlight trembling. "He's not going to let her go," Maggie said, her voice barely audible. "He's been planning this for years." "Then we end it," Lauren said, her voice steel. "Sophie, you stay with Maggie in the cruiser. Lock the doors. Sam, we're going after him." Sophie's eyes widened, her small hand gripping Lauren's. "Don't leave me," she pleaded. "He'll come back." Lauren knelt, meeting her gaze. "I'm coming back for you, Sophie. I promise. You're safe now." She handed Sophie to Maggie, who guided the girl into the cruiser's back seat. The doors locked with a heavy click, and Maggie's flashlight glowed faintly through the tinted windows. Lauren and Samuel moved into the fog, their guns drawn, following the direction Carver had fled. The forest was a maze of shadows, the trees looming like silent sentinels. "He's got a rifle, knows the terrain, and he's desperate," Lauren said, her voice low. "We don't underestimate him." Samuel nodded, his flashlight catching a broken branch ahead. "He's not covering his tracks anymore. He's in a hurry." They followed the trail, the ground growing rockier, as they neared another cave entrance, half hidden by a curtain of vines. Lauren's light swept the opening, revealing fresh boot prints and a smear of mud on the rocks. "He's gone underground again," she said, her heart pounding. "This is his safe place." Samuel hesitated, his eyes scanning the darkness. "We go in. We're playing his game. He could be waiting." "We don't have a choice," Lauren said. "Sophie's been through enough. We end this now." They entered the cave, the air cold and damp, the walls slick with water. The tunnel was wider than the last, but the darkness was oppressive, swallowing their flashlight beams. Lauren's ears strained for any sound, a footstep, a breath, anything. The trail led deeper, twisting through narrow passages until it opened into a large chamber. Her light caught a chilling sight, a cot, a lantern, and a wall covered in photographs, just like the room in Carver's basement. But these photos were older, showing other children, Tommy from 1985, Ellie from 1992, and more, their names etched into the stone below. "Jesus," Samuel whispered, his voice shaking. "He's been at this for decades." Lauren's flashlight landed on a small table, where a journal lay open, its pages filled with Carver's cramped handwriting. She scanned the latest entry, her blood running cold. "The fog hides them. The shadows protect them. Sophie's the last. They'll never take her from me. Asterisk." Beside the journal was a map of the Smokies, marked with red X caves, campsites, remote clearings. One X matched their location. "He's got a network," Lauren said, her voice tight. "This isn't just him. He's working with someone or something." Samuel's eyes widened. "You think he's part of a group? Or he thinks he is," Lauren said, pocketing the journal. "Those symbols in the caves, the keepsakes, the name sits too organized for one man." A low laugh echoed through the chamber, chilling and deliberate. Lauren spun, her gun raised, her flashlight catching Carver's silhouette at the far end. He stood in a tunnel entrance, his rifle slung over his shoulder, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "You're persistent, Agent Harper," he said, his voice smooth but laced with venom. "But you're too late. Sophie belongs to the fog now." "Where is she?" Lauren demanded, her finger steady on the trigger. "What did you do to her?" Carver smiled, his teeth glinting. "I saved her. From a world that chews up kids like her. You think you're the hero here, but you're just another bad person trying to take her away." Samuel stepped forward, his gun trained on Carver. "Drop the rifle, Carver. You're done." Carver's smile didn't waver. "You don't get it, do you? The fog protects its own. You'll never find the others." He raised his rifle, but before he could aim, Lauren fired, the shot echoing like thunder. Carver staggered, clutching his shoulder, and bolted into the tunnel. After him, Lauren shouted, sprinting forward. Samuel followed, their flashlights bouncing wildly. The tunnel twisted, narrowing until they were forced to crouch. Carver's footsteps echoed ahead, growing fainter. Lauren's lungs burned, but she pushed on, driven by the image of Sophie's terrified face. The tunnel opened into another chamber, this one smaller, With a heavy steel door set into the rock, Lauren's light caught fresh blood on the floor. Carver's. "He's hurt," she said, her voice breathless. "He can't go far." Samuel pried at the door, but it was locked, a shiny padlock glinting in the light. "This is it," he said, his voice grim. "His real hideout." Lauren's radio crackled, Maggie's voice breaking through. "Harper, Sophie's safe, but we've got a problem." The cruisers surrounded 3 figures in the fog, just watching. "I can't make 'em out." Lauren's blood ran cold. "Hold tight, Maggie. Backup's coming. Keep Sophie safe." She turned to Samuel, her eyes blazing. "He's not alone. We need to get through this door." Samuel nodded, pulling a small breaching charge from his pack. "Stand back." He set the charge, and with a muffled blast, the lock shattered. The door swung open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. A cot sat in the center, empty but rumpled, as if recently used. Photos lined the walls. More children, more names, and at the center, a recent picture of Sophie, dated 2 days ago. But the room was empty. "He moved her," Lauren said, her voice shaking with rage. "He knew we were coming." Samuel's flashlight caught a small notebook on the cot, its pages torn and scribbled with frantic notes. Lauren grabbed it, scanning the text. Asterisk, "They're watching. The shadows know." "Sophie's safe in the deep place. The fog will keep her." Asterisk. Below the words was a crude map, leading to another cave, 2 miles deeper into. The acrid smell of smoke choked the air as Lauren Harper and Samuel Boone stumbled out of the cave, the distant glow of fire painting the fog orange. The Great Smoky Mountains were alive with chaos, the forest fire spreading through the pines 2 miles from their position near Little River. The temperature held steady at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but the heat from the blaze made the night feel suffocating. Lauren clutched the crude map they'd found in Carver's hidden chamber, its scribbled lines pointing to another cave deeper in the park, where Sophie Bennett might still be held. Her heart pounded, driven by the image of the 9-year-old's terrified face and the chilling realization that Thomas Carver wasn't working alone. The figures Maggie Holt had reported circling the cruiser shadows in the fog suggested a larger, darker network. Time was slipping away, and the fire was a deliberate distraction, set to cover Carver's escape. "Harper, we gotta move," Samuel shouted, his voice hoarse over the crackle of flames in the distance. His flashlight swept the clearing, catching glints of wet rock and twisted branches. "That fire's closing in, and if Carver's got friends out here, we're sitting ducks." Lauren nodded, her jaw tight. "The map points to a cave 2 miles east, near Abrams Creek. That's where he's taken her." She keyed her radio, the signal faint but holding. "Maggie, status on Sophie and the cruiser?" Maggie's voice came through, tense and clipped. "We're locked in, but those figures are still out there. 3 of them, just standing in the fog, not moving, not talking. Backup's 10 minutes out, but the fire's spreading fast. Hold tight," Lauren said, her voice steady despite the dread clawing at her chest. "We're heading to Abrams Creek. Keep Sophie safe." She turned to Samuel, her eyes blazing. "We end this now." They set off, following the map's rough lines through the dense forest. The fog was unrelenting, swirling around them like a living thing, and the smoke thickened with every step, stinging their eyes and lungs. Lauren's flashlight cut through the haze, revealing a faint trail, broken branches, scuffed dirt, signs of someone moving quickly. "Carver's not covering his tracks," she said, her voice low. "He's the Disparity." Samuel's face was grim, his gun drawn. "Or he's leading us into a trap. Those shadows Maggie saw, they're not ghosts. Carver's got help." Lauren didn't respond, her focus locked on the trail. The map showed a cave tucked into a rocky outcropping near Abrams Creek, a remote corner of the park even rangers rarely visited. Her mind raced, piecing together the evidence, the necklace in the bear den, the pink fabric, the keys, the photos in Carver's basement, the names carved into the cave walls. Tommy from 1985, Ellie from 1992, and now Sophie. Carver wasn't just a lone predator, he was part of something bigger, a network hiding in the smoky shadows. The journal's words echoed in her head. The fog protects them. The shadows know. Asterisk. A mile in, the trail grew rockier, the ground sloping toward the faint rush of Abrams Creek. The fire's glow was fainter now, but the smoke hung heavy, mixing with the fog to create a choking haze. Lauren's flashlight caught a fresh bootprint-sized tin, deep tread, matching Carver's BZ'd. Beside, it was a smaller print, child-sized, uneven, as if Sophie was being dragged. "She's with him," Lauren said, her voice tight. "He's moving her." Samuel's eyes narrowed. "He's hurt, though. You clipped him in that cave. He can't keep this up much longer." They pushed forward, the creek's roar growing louder. The trail ended at a jagged outcropping, where a narrow cave mouth yawned, half hidden by moss and vines. Lauren's light swept the entrance, catching a smear of blood on the rock carvers from the shoulder wound she'd given him. "He's in there," she said, her heart pounding. "Sam, radio for backup. Tell him we've got a confirmed location." Samuel nodded, keying his radio. "Caldwell, this is Boone. We're at Abrams Creek, cave entrance. Coordinates 35-2840. Carver's here, likely with Sophie. Send everyone you've got." Ethan's voice crackled through, strained. "Copy, Boone. Fire's complicating things. Shoppers are grounded, but we've got ground units en route. ETA, 15 minutes. Watch your back." Lauren holstered her radio, her gun raised. "We're not waiting 15 minutes. Sophie's in there." She ducked into the cave, Samuel close behind. The air was cold and damp, the walls slick with water. The tunnel was narrow, forcing them to move single file, their flashlights casting long, distorted shadows. Lauren's ears strained for any sound of footstep. A cry bit. The only noise was the drip of water and the distant crackle of the fire outside. The tunnel opened into a small chamber, lit by a flickering lantern on a rocky ledge. A sleeping bag lay crumpled in the corner, next to a pile of canned food and a small stack of children's books. Lauren's light caught another wall of photographs, more faces, more names, some dating back decades. Her stomach twisted as she spotted Sophie's face, her expression blank in a photo dated 3 days ago. "He's been moving her," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "This is his fallback." Samuel's flashlight landed on a metal box tucked under the ledge. He pried it open, revealing a collection of trinkets, bracelets, toys, a faded ribbon. "More keepsakes," he said, his voice grim. "How many kids has this bastard taken?" Before Lauren could answer, a soft sob echoed from deeper in the cave. She spun, her light cutting through the darkness. "Sophie?" she called, her voice echoing. "It's Lauren. We're here to take you home." The sob came again, closer, followed by a scuffle of footsteps. Lauren moved toward the sound, her gun steady. The tunnel twisted, narrowing until she had to crouch. Samuel followed, his breathing heavy in the confined space. The tunnel opened into a final chamber, smaller and colder, with a single cot in the center. Sophie sat there, her knees drawn up, her stuffed dog clutched tightly. Her blonde hair was matted, her eyes wide with fear. Standing over her was Carver, his rifle slung across his back, blood soaking his shoulder. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with a manic intensity. "Stop right there," Lauren said, her gun trained on him. "Step away from her, Carver." Carver's lips curled into a twisted smile. "You don't understand, Agent Harper. I saved her. The world out there, it's poison. I gave her a home, a family. You stole her life." Lauren snapped, her finger steady on the trigger. 4 years, Carver. You took her from her parents, locked her in caves, brainwashed her. You're done." Sophie whimpered, her eyes darting between Lauren and Carver. "Daddy James, don't let them take me," she said, her voice small and trembling. Carver knelt beside her, his voice soft but chilling. "It's okay, Sophie. The fog will keep you safe, just like I promised." Samuel stepped forward, his gun raised. "Back off, Carver. Hands where I can see him." Carver ignored him, his eyes locked on Sophie. "You're my girl," he said, his voice breaking. "I did this for you." Lauren's heart ached, but her resolve didn't waver. "Sophie, listen to me," she said, keeping her voice calm. Your real mom and dad, Anna and Michael, they've been looking for you every day. They love you. They want you home. Sophie's eyes flickered, a spark of recognition breaking through the fear. Mom sang to me, she whispered. A song about sunshine. That's right, Lauren said, taking a cautious step forward. You are my sunshine. She sang it every night. She's waiting for you, Sophie. Carver's face darkened, his hand twitching toward his rifle. Don't listen to her, he said, his voice rising. They'll hurt you. I'm your family now. Lauren's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance, Carver. Step away. Before Carver could move, a low rumble shook the cave, followed by a distant explosion. The air filled with dust, and Sophie screamed, curling into a ball. Lauren lunged, grabbing the girl and pulling her away from Carver. Samuel fired, the shot grazing Carver's leg. He staggered, dropping to one knee, but scrambled into a side tunnel, disappearing into the darkness. Sam, go, Lauren shouted, shielding Sophie. Don't let him get away. Samuel bolted after Carver, his flashlight bouncing wildly. Lauren held Sophie close, her heart pounding as the girl sobbed against her chest. It's okay, she whispered. You're safe now. But the rumble came again, stronger, and rocks began to fall from the ceiling. The fire outside was destabilizing the cave, and they were running out of time. Lauren scooped Sophie up, her small frame light but trembling. We're getting out of here, she said, her voice firm. She navigated the tunnel, dodging falling debris, her flashlight barely piercing the dust-filled air. The exit loomed ahead, moonlight filtering through the fog. She stumbled out into the clearing, the river's roar a welcome sound. Maggie was there, her cruiser parked nearby, the troopers forming a perimeter. Harper, Maggie shouted, rushing forward. You got her. Lauren nodded, setting Sophie down gently. She's okay, but Carver's still in there. Sam's on him. Maggie's eyes widened as she took in Sophie's frail form. Good God, she said, wrapping a blanket around the girl. Let's get her to the cruiser. Lauren's radio crackled, Samuel's voice breaking through. Harper, I lost him. Tunnel branched off, and he's gone. But I found something in another journal. It's got names, dates, locations. He's not working alone. Lauren's blood ran cold. Copy, Sam. Get out now, the cave's coming down. She turned to Maggie. Get Sophie to safety. I'm going back for Sam. Maggie grabbed her arm. You're nuts, Harper. That fire's closing in, and the cave's unstable. I'm not leaving him, Lauren said, her voice final. She handed Sophie to Maggie, who guided the girl to the cruiser. Sophie's eyes met Lauren's, a flicker of trust breaking through the fear. I'll be back, Lauren promised, then turned and ran back into the cave. The air was thick with smoke and dust, the walls trembling as she navigated the tunnel. Sam, she shouted, her voice echoing. Her flashlight caught a glimpse of movement. Samuel, limping, clutching a bloodied arm. You okay? She asked, grabbing him. Got nicked by a rock, he said, his voice strained. Carver's gone. But this journal, it's a goldmine. Names, meeting spots, even some kind of code. He's part of a group, Harper. They've been taking kids for years. Lauren took the journal, her hand shaking as she scanned it. Pages of names, dates, and cryptic symbols filled the book, some entries decades old. We'll deal with that later, she said. Let's move. They stumbled out of the cave just as another rumble shook the ground, the entrance collapsing behind them. The fire's glow was brighter now, the forest alive with the crackle of flames. Back up arrived 3 cruisers, their lights cutting through the fog. Lauren handed the journal to a trooper, her voice urgent. Get this to the lab. Priority 1. Sophie was safe in the cruiser, wrapped in blankets, her stuffed dog still clutched tightly. Maggie stood guard, her face a mix of relief and exhaustion. She's okay, Maggie said. Scared, but talking, keeps asking about her mom. Lauren knelt beside Sophie, her voice soft. We're taking you to your parents now, okay? They're waiting in Knoxville. Sophie nodded, her eyes distant but hopeful. Will they sing to me again? Every night, Lauren said, her throat tight. You're going home.